Welcome to No Church Answers, a weekly roundtable Bible discussion for men. We're not pastors, just regular guys talking about scriptures and their own spiritual journeys. And now, here's your host, Bill Cox.
And welcome, everybody. This is No Church Answers. My name is Bill Cox, and I'm here with the guys from Man Up, Spiritual Oasis for Men podcast, and we're going to talk about Christian masculinity, and so I'm excited to turn it over to them. I want to start by introducing, he is a former world-class policy writer, a current professional gambler. He is the show producer, Mr. Steve Titch. Hey, Steve. And a former prosecutor and attorney, kind of the group historian. We call him the judge. It's Michael Cropper. Hey, Mike.
How are you?
A big deal in talent development, a trainer or a commercial teacher, I guess you can think of him. He's kind of like the group theologian, Robert Koshu, the professor. Hey, Robert. And my name is Bill Cox. I'm basically indie filmmaker, indie writer, contractor to pay for those kind of projects. And I want to go ahead and just throw this over. Christian masculinity. Start out with Mr. Steve Titch.
Well, I'm going to come out and say it. Toxic masculinity. And I know a lot of our audiences just rolled their eyes.
I'll do it too.
That's not a church here.
I roll it
I'm going to
off,
say it's an annoyance answer. It's not. But I'm going to start out by saying that toxic masculinity exists. And it's simply this: behaving like a jerk.
Thank you for clarifying.
If you're driving your car and somebody cuts you off, you can probably say a curse word under your death. But if you if you insist on cutting that guy off in return, getting out of your car, screaming at him, rolling out your window, toxic masculinity. If you get in an argument with your wife, sometimes you're going to yell, sometimes you're going to raise your wife. Smacking her across the face, toxic masculinity.
I agree.
Yep. It's not necessarily, it's not aggressiveness, it's not assertiveness, it's not demanding high standards. If I am playing poker against you, Robert, and I think I have a better hand than you, my goal is to get all your chips from your side of the table to mine.
There ain't nothing, there's nothing wrong with that, because I'm going to do the same thing back to you.
There are people who will call that, you're so competitive. You're so... You go out... I'm going too long. Oral Hershiser threw a ball at 95 miles an hour. He had a string of 56 scoreless innings. He was a Christian, but his goal when he took the mound was to strike you out and get you out. And he said that bluntly. And he said it's simple as that. Probably today he'd be considered toxic masculinity. So we'll talk about that. But there's also another side of the coin that I think too many Christians are still wrapped around this John Wayne, Gary Cooper model, which is problematical in itself and has problems. So there we got. I've gone on too long.
Wow, Michael Cropper.
All right, Steve's been talking about the extremes in masculinity abused. Because we are supposed to be masculine, folks, but what's the limit in Christians that we should show or acknowledge masculinity? There are many good traits we men possess which reflect our strength. Many of the characteristics are learned. However, being strong should not mean you use brawn instead of your brain if you need to use your brain. A few weeks ago, I brought home a chest of drawers which my son gave me. It's not very heavy, folks, but it was awkward. It was late at night, and I needed to unload my truck and put the chest of drawers into the garage. Well, I retrieved a furniture dolly and proceeded to slide it out of the truck and onto the dolly. Now, furniture dollies are not known for cooperating. The chest was lying on its back, and folks, I could handle it because I am strong and I am a man, okay? Now, that's not toxic, but that's a misuse of the thoughts of masculinity. So I slid the chest out. The dolly took off in another direction, and I could not control the chest, so I dropped it. So in frustration, I yelled, because I was tired and I was pissed. another word for masculinity, right? Two more manly traits being used the wrong way. Well, my neighbor and a friend came running up the driveway and asked, "Are you okay?" They heard me scream, and they thought I had fallen off the ladder or something and hurt myself. Yes, I said, "I'm fine," but really, my pride was hurt big time. I did not want to admit that I needed help. Well, the chest, miraculously, right, that's it. The chest was not damaged, so they carried it in the house for me. I was too proud to ask for help when I knew I needed it. So, was that a Christian character trait I exhibited when I refused to seek help? Today, on our videocast, we're going to look to see if brawn fits into godly traits for Christian men, or where it fits into them. And I hope we share some points that will guide you in your journey of being a Christian father and a leader and a man.
Excellent, Professor.
So, society has a problem today. And there are some people that say toxic masculinity is the problem. I'll say toxic masculinity isn't the problem. Being just a total jerk is where the problem lies in. Yeah. But the reality of it is, when we look at the world today, people are shooting up schools. Leaders are lying on their financial statements. They're grabbing any woman they think and then think they're above reproach when it happens. Religious organizations are covering up sexual abuse within their organizations and hiding it. SBC looking at you. But the thing is, real manliness solves all of those problems. When you look at a real man from a Christian standpoint. So a lot of people want to refer to the verse as meek. We're called to be meek. The meek shall inherit the earth. The Greek definition of meek is actually strength under control. So it doesn't mean, oh, well, that's just too bad. No, we're going to go do something about it. It's the guy who looks at something at work and goes, no, that's not what we're doing. That's wrong. We're going to change direction and go this way.
And fights for it.
And yes. And doesn't worry about, well, I didn't get everybody on board. You're the leader. Make a decision. I've been in too many business meetings where we met for 3 hours, talked about crap, and nobody made a decision at the end of the day because nobody wanted to step up and take the role. And it's just, that is part of what's destroying our culture. And it's creating a cognitive dissonance within men. Because men are told we're supposed to do this, but wait, we can't, because if we do that, we're bad. And so men don't know what to do. So you see a lot of the problems that are being created in society right now, is coming from that. Our call to be men involves several things that we'll talk about, but if they're not happening, this is right after the shooting that occurred in Uvalde, Texas. And if I could list everything that was wrong in that situation, about 3/4 of it would have been solved had there been a real man available in that kid's life at some point.
Excellent. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and read the scripture that this is coming from. And it's 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. And with that, we're going to dive in when we get back from the break. This is No Church Answers. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Bill Cox, host of No Church Answers and director of Man Up, Spiritual Oasis for Men. We hope you enjoy our show as much as we enjoy doing it. But our ministry needs your support if we are to continue to bring our TV show, our podcast, our live shows to men seeking spiritual refreshment. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a patron of Man Up Spiritual Oasis. Get more details at our page on patreon.com. If you would like to support us directly, you can make a contribution through PayPal at donate@manupmedia.org. All contributions are tax deductible. We're not pastors, just regular guys, so whether you're successful or struggling, we hope to bring you the good news of God's saving grace as we share our own spiritual journeys. Please consider supporting Man Up and No Church Answers today. And welcome back. This is No Church Answers. We are talking about Christian masculinity, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over here to Mr. Steve Titch.
Well, I think some of this is rooted in the sad fact that men, and this occurred to me, and I think it's a lot of cases, men who grow up in the church go to youth group, and pretty much they get to 18, they have to go to college or they go to job. They get into their 18, 19, 20, turn 20 or so. Maybe they do stick with church groups in college or come back, but there's usually a gap then. That period of time is so important because when you get back to church, when you're 30, 35, or 40, you have a whole new perspective. And just like Paul says, sometimes the problem is that your religious education, your Bible education ended when you were a teenager. And in many ways, what you learned then, well, it anchors a faith. The things your life experience that you applied to it is far different. So you may say, oh, well, that made sense when I was 15, 16, 17, but now. So where I'm going with this is an issue of men who are not going to church for whatever reason. I'm not saying that judgmentally, and they lose touch with really what anchors their lives. And you're I know this is a big mission with you, Bill, in terms of getting men who are not married or with family into church. And I'm not, that's not the be-all, end-all result of this, but it speaks to what you're saying. And it speaks to this particular verse that we need as men to make sure we keep growing up in the faith, to make sure that we are reading the Bible and studying it. And when we get to be, for those of you who get to be 25 or 30 and you open the Bible and you say, oh, well, this just doesn't make sense to me anymore. I'm throwing it all out. No! You like to do. No, it's time for you to rethink what this means and reapply it. The essential truth stays the same. As I've said, the tactics change.
Yeah. As men, in my mind, there are three things we are really called to grow up in. Number one is our faith in God. Number two is our relationships with our family. That includes our wives and our children and how we work it. And number three is our calling, what some people refer to as a career. And we've kind of talked multiple times about how you define that. And there are jobs you do because I got to put a paycheck on to support my family. And then there's your career, your calling that you're doing because that's what you want to do. And the calling, the family, and your relationship with God are the three pillars that men should be building their lives on that we've kind of thrown out because if you look at the what you're talking about, Steve, they didn't get any foundation for their faith. You know, I like to say there's a movement out called the evangelicals that have deconstructed their faith. They never constructed it to begin with. Number two, we're called to be a person to our family. Culture's not supporting that at all anymore, by the way. You know, if you stay with your family, you stay with your wife, you make your kid, you discipline your children. If you're doing that, culture's going to look at you like you're insane. And the third thing is our faith or our calling, and the other two impact that calling. But what we've done as a society, we've taken our career and put that first to support our family. And now if I have time left over, we'll go do the God thing. And we've got everything all out of whack. And as men, what we've done is we've taken the John Wayne mythology. By the way, if anybody wants, Kristen Dumont has written an excellent book called Jesus and John Wayne. And it's on my list, my never-ending 600 books that I'm trying to buy list. But it's pretty high up on the list I'm going to pick up. But I would recommend reading it. I've heard several interviews with her now, and she has a lot to say about this. And in essence, how because we've got it out of whack, we've in essence created the toxic masculine culture that's fed from our career into our family, into the church, instead of letting our church and our faith impact our family and then the culture on the back end and how we react at work. And so this is really our calling as men, is to really pick that ball up and let's do what Jesus did. Jesus was the great counterculturalist. It's time for us as Christian men to flip the script again and say, no, the church and my relationship with God is first. I'm going to put my family first, then I'm going to my calling.
Michael Cropper.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sorry.
You were rolling.
What I'm leaning toward, and I think the guys are also addressing this, is does admitting I need God or being a Christian mean that I'm a wimp? What does a Christian man do? And I'm going to touch on it without going on the scriptures. He's a protector. He protects his family, his children. The guys have referred to this, alluded to this. Most men are not alpha males, like Bill. But most men of us are beta males, and we learn to be protectors, okay? So if you're not an alpha male that's ready to fight, if somebody threatens you, and by the way, Jesus did say be a peacemaker when you can. He says you must have a plan to protect your family. Next, you're a role model for Christ. You lead your family to church, you teach Christ in front of the family, and you teach scriptures to your family. You pray. These are not wimpy things. You may think they are, but they are not. And then a role model as dad. You encourage your children, you attend their activities, you help them with their homework. And you are unselfish. And the main thing here I had to learn, folks, and that's you don't live for yourself, you live for your family, right? You put them first, and if there's time left over, then you live for yourself. But anyway, loving is not wimpy. That's the role model that God gave us and Jesus gave us. We are, number one, we're to love our God with all our heart, mind, soul. Number two, we're to love our neighbor, then ourselves. Number three. So at church, we participate in choir, teaching, whatever, give offerings and tithes. And as an occupation, we're a leader, we're ethical, we're on time. And we express our love and appreciation for family, and we use wisdom in our decisions. Bill?
Well, let me just ask a question. Close your eyes and think about what a Christian man at church is. I asked my son that, and he said it's a guy that is nice and wonderful and is quiet and just keeps things in order. And I thought about that, and that's kind of like the person that doesn't rock the boat. The boat is already going. He doesn't rock the boat and goes along with it. That's not the impression of a man that I have. To me, and unfortunately, and Mike kind of stumbled on it, I'm more of a warrior type. I just am. Was raised on a farm, wrestled, played sports, loved it. There were times that I did try to hurt people. We were talking about that on one of the other ones, being a little bit more than just competitive, like what Steve was saying. But really, when is a man needed? And I think that's the real thing about toxic masculinity. The term has become so offensive to people that men don't even really want to get close to that boundary to be considered toxically.
Already the toxic masculinity is defined as just being man. The baseline male behavior is not toxic.
So, super quick, what we've done is we took the 1950s, children, you go sit in the corner and you be quiet. I don't want to hear from you. To psychological manipulation of, you're not supposed to be like that because if you are, you're a bad man. And we've actually, we've taken the extreme now and just flipped it. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Bill.
Not a problem, because men are needed, to me, 2 times. They're needed when we need a leader in crisis.
Yep.
Man needs to stand up. And when people are hurting and need to comfort them and to show that there's a way out from the hurt. That's 2 times that man is really needed. And both of them are a type of leadership position. And I can tell you one where I've totally failed. In my neighborhood, there's only one other house that has the mother and father of the children in it. On our whole block of, say, there's probably 20 homes. I mean, it's either children living with step parents or grandparents or that kind of configuration.
Parent, yeah.
And there's a couple that were friends of my kids that needed a father figure. And I absolutely was not comfortable in taking that role on. Whereas I can tell you this, when I lived out in the country when I was a kid, and it typically wasn't divorce, it was like a father that had died, tragic. I mean, we had a lot of that in the farm area. But people would be more active in a neighbor's life to try to take the place of that absent father or whatever. I don't do that. And I think in a way I feel sad about it, but I just don't want to, I just don't feel comfortable crossing. And I think that's one of the bad results of the toxic masculinity. It's regular guys pulling back from something God would have wanted me to do.
Yeah. I'm going to use your rock the boat analogy. One of the true things I think with a guy, and Jesus exhibited this in the way he led his disciples, you don't want to rock the boat if the boat is on course. But if the boat's off course, you want to be the guy to go, hey, stop. We're going in the wrong direction here. We need to turn around. We need to go left. We need to go right. And if you look at it, and I'm going to use Mike's favorite phrase, the Pharisees had the ancient Jewish religion at that point going in the wrong. It was not what God intended. And he just loved to tweak the Pharisees with it. And that was an idea where he was confronting them almost to the point he was doing it. He would have been labeled a toxic Jew in the day because he was, hey, is today the Sabbath? Is it Waffle Hills? Hey, come here for a minute. Okay, you're healed. Go on.
Well, let's look at it a little deeper than that because I think there's your model. I mean, it's kind of almost everyone's afraid that you should try to behave like Jesus. Well, there's a book called Imitation of Christ, but you can see, I think, the whole idea of Christian masculinity there. Now we'll never get to be Jesus, but Jesus was God incarnate, yet he certainly didn't behave like he was God incarnate. However, he never denied he was. He had that power under control.
He's self-limited,
and he's self-limited. And but we see still, as you mentioned, he had leadership. He sent his disciples out a number of times on mission trips and he mentored them. He never backed down from a confrontation. He was nice about it, but he always spoke his mind. When he'd have, dinners and banquets with Pharisees, he kind of insulted them from time to time. He kind of made pointed comments about in Luke we have, there are some people who make a big show of their belief, and then there's a widow over there who quietly sticks her one coin in the poor box. And he kind of says, who do you think God really is putting his eye on. And even the Pharisees pick up on this sometimes, because I think in one verse the Pharisees said they were insulted. So he spoke his mind, but he spoke the truth. He didn't do it. He wasn't nasty about it. He was very direct. And that's what we can learn. But he was also modeled servanthood. Well, he modeled putting things aside. He modeled the idea of, you're going to wash my feet. I mean, right up to Peter. It's wash your feet. Peter couldn't do it. Peter said, I can't. You're too. And no. If you to lead, you're kind of in a way it's saying you got to be able to do what you're asking other people to do.
Michael Cropper.
Real quick. These guys are hitting on a couple points that we want to convey to you as a Christian man and a leader. Being quiet about a situation doesn't mean you're not in control. In fact, just the opposite. And Steve used that, and Robert referred to that.
Acquiesce and lose control, actually.
Right. Jesus was quite in control of all the situations. He just did not argue with the Pharisees. He used sticky comments to irritate them and stick them. And that's one of the things I learned as a Christian. You learn, he told us to be peaceful unless we have to be otherwise. And that's simply, don't go start a fight, right? If the fight comes to you and you have no choice, then you take the fight and you fight, right? Bill's grinning because Bill says, bring the fight to me and I'll start. But anyway, so how do you be a man, a Christian man? And we're running out of time. So folks, I want to tell you, do not scream, curse when you stub your toe. These are men, these are stoic men, and these are Christian characteristics. But sometimes if you break your foot, you might scream. So it depends on the situation. We're strong, we're courageous, we're decisive. Sometimes we don't know the right answer. And folks, if you don't know it in front of your family, if you don't know the right answer, say, I don't know the right answer, but I'll find out. Or ask your family what their opinion is. We teach our kids swimming, bicycle riding, diving. I think Steve's going to take his son scuba diving, which is tremendous this summer. We hike, we climb mountains, we take vacations, we enjoy God's beautiful creation. We go to the Grand Canyon, we do all these things. Robert travels a lot with the trailer. We are supposed to lead and set the example. That doesn't mean being loud, okay? But anyway, a lot more of the guys want to say, so I want to just tell you, pray, read the Bible, lead your family to Christ.
And thanks so much. I'd like to especially thank the professor, Robert Koshu, the judge, Michael Cropper, our producer, Mr. Steve Titch. This wraps up our 26th program and the end of our current run. Before we close, on behalf of the Man Up fellas, I want to thank our director, videographer, and live stream editor, Tantron of West Side Studios here in Sugar Land. And if you need world-class audio video work done, see this man and his team. I also want to thank Preach the Word Worldwide TV Network, which hosted our weekly broadcast and provided weekly support. And most of all, I want to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in each week. And if you missed any of the shows, you can find them all on our YouTube, on the Man Up Spiritual Oasis channel. Thank you again. This has been No Church Answers. My name is Bill Cox. Thank you.
You've been watching No Church Answers, a weekly roundtable Bible discussion for men, a production of Man Up Spiritual Oasis. Want more? Check out the Man Up Spiritual Oasis for Men podcast, available wherever you download your podcast. And to learn more about us and how to support our ministry, visit our website at www.man-upspiritualoasis.com.